Hello, everybody. Welcome to AI Amateurs. Michelle, how are you?
Pretty awesome. Cutting it tight. I got off the bus to stop early, and I'm just gonna talk while I'm walking.
Okay, sounds good. Well, maybe we can get back to you later on. Omar's here too. Omar, how are you doing?
Hey, doing great.
Omar with the perfect sound quality as always. Do you hear a difference in my sound quality, Omar?
Sounds perfect to me.
Yeah. Well, Uzi, do you hear a difference?
No, you sound gorgeous.
Thanks, as always. Well, I just downloaded the new iOS update with Apple Intelligence. And it also said the Apple Pro got an update, software update as well, my Apple Pro, and the sound is supposed to be better. So I guess we'll see about that. Michelle, do you hear any difference?
I mean, if I contrast it to how bad you sounded the years priors, like this is a much bigger difference. Like trying to make the difference between last week and now, I guess it's 3% better, but it's like 500% better than last year. So that I'll take that into account.
Very good. Awesome. Well, Michelle, so what's the news with Apple Intelligence that's rolling out? What's the biggest news? Maybe we can start with that.
Well, they're really going slowly, and it was in developer preview before today, where you're technically not allowed to share, but developers started leaking screenshots, and it was like, well, do I leak the developer version, or are they going to open the open beta? So since the cat was out of the bag, now if you're in the open beta iOS branch of like updating your phone beyond the regular updates to get them as early as possible, you can start testing out what developers have had access for a little while, which is not much.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Um, by the way, if you're listening to this on YouTube, please let me know how the audio quality is in live chat. Hopefully tomorrow, I'm going to pick up my new laptop from MacBook Pro from Paymore, one of our sponsors. Paymore's hooking me up with a MacBook Pro, so hopefully the audio qualities will be gone forever with this new laptop. But if you're on YouTube right now, please let me know how the audio quality is. And if you're not, you can head over there through the link at the top of our screens and hit that like button. Omar, are you excited for this new iOS update? Did you download it? Did you see anything huge difference?
Yeah, I've been using the iOS beta for quite some time, but today they launched some services aspects of it. They launched Siri, they launched a lot of other stuff. On the one hand, they're kind of nice features. They can do things like summarize your notifications. The Siri's a little bit better. On the other hand, it's far from a state of the art experience. I mean, I would consider a sort of state of the art voice experience to be what ChatGPT has with advanced voice, although that isn't perfect either. I was kind of just like, um, I'm not that impressed. They are kind of struggling a little bit. Usually they get their new iOS update out by September. Here it is, it's late October. They still have more features that they haven't launched yet. Um, I'm a huge Apple fan. I'm a longtime Apple investor since I was in sixth grade. And I'm a little bit worried about how Apple responds to all the changes that are happening with AI, what the future of the company is, and the company's leadership. So I guess it's a good sign. It's baby steps. But when I was a kid, Apple was putting out the leading best front end experience, the best experience in the world. You got that from Apple. And now we're living in a world where, in one of the most crucial new growth areas of technology, Apple's not the best. They're kind of a follower and kind of like a stumbling follower. So it's really interesting.
Yeah, I agree with you. Those are very great comments. Also, if you remember from a year ago, people were saying Apple is never the first, but they are the best. They must have this incredible product and services coming, but they're not talking about it. So let's wait to see what happens. and now it's here, and people are underwhelmed. Robert, what do you say to that?
Privacy is a noose around Apple's neck. They want to build a system that keeps everything to us private. And that takes more engineering than what OpenAI has put into it so far. I have the 18.2 developer beta, which just came out last week, and it turns on more features, but it's still not, I'm not going to get on the rooftop saying, oh my God, this is the best thing I've ever
Robert,
seen. I
Robert,
agree
hold
with
on,
Omar.
hold on 1 second. Uzi, how is the audio on YouTube?
Oh, give me a second. I'll go.
I'm getting some mixed feedback. Please let me know how the audio is on YouTube. We're gonna wait until this is resolved. Uzi, anything? All right, Uzi says good.
I thought it was good.
Okay. G Major says good. So Crunchy, it must be on your end. Sorry, Robert. Please continue.
No, I made my points that Apple is behind in several places. They have been putting a lot of AI inferencing in all their computers for more than 3 years, so they have planned for this shift. It's just the privacy is a noose around their neck that it slows them way down, and I can just imagine all the meetings they have to turn on a single feature.
Uzi.
Yeah, I mean, I think you may have heard Dan Ives, pumping the great refresh cycle, and I think Dan Ives is right. I just got a new iPhone this weekend. I do think that the reason why Apple is usually the great last mover is more of a form advantage, whereas a form factor advantage. Whereas now they're just making the phone smaller, thinner and thinner. But I think it's more of a software problem with AI, which doesn't seem to be their strong suit.
Rich Bira.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a comment. So I just loaded 18.2 and I do some development work for clients with Apple. And I've always been a huge Apple fan and have always touted, they move slow partially, especially when it comes to the AI stuff and smart home world because of privacy. And, they want to keep everything really close to, the device. But I'll tell you where I got some concern just a couple days ago was there was an interview with Federici in regards to why I think it was a Wall Street Journal person that did an interview, and the one thing that struck me that he said was how much they struggled internally on the photo editing feature. Like right now you kind of circle something and remove it. And he just kind of highlighted how much internal debate there was about that. And he gave some kind of reasoning about, photography should be pure and stuff. That's when I kind of that was like a red flag that just came up and said, wow, if they move that slow on editing photos, they're going to move pretty slow on everything else.
Thank you, Rich. Robert. Robert is helping his friend move.
Sorry,
That's okay, Robert. You're
I'm
welcome.
distracted today.
Then it's okay to kind of just go on listener mode, and we can just enjoy. And whenever you want to come up, you're welcome to come up. Chris, welcome.
Hello, how are you?
Good. Any comments on Apple Intelligence?
Oh yeah, there's a couple. So I think everyone here recognizes that Apple is typically, at least with the past decade, has been a last mover, but always a best mover. With VR, they were a pretty late mover, but they were a best mover. And I think when it comes to AI, it doesn't work. I don't think that works. I think the field's moving way too fast, way too tight, way too dynamically. And you could look at this when Apple had made some large language model
Sorry,
competitive.
just 1 second. Did you say Apple is the best mover in VR?
Oh, I would say in terms of the price point, what they were able to do, with the Apple Vision Pro, I would say, I mean, like obviously that's not the infrastructure hasn't been fully built out yet, but yeah, I would say they probably have the best VR
In terms of the
range.
price point,
Yeah.
that's the
Chris,
worst part about it.
No,
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I
Chris,
mean, I've tried the Vision
sorry.
Pro and I've
Okay.
tried the other ones, but I
All
mean,
right, sorry. Thank you very much, Chris. Okay. All right. Let's keep new speakers. Let's go back to the rule of new speakers should stick to questions. Yeah, I've been saying that Apple is the best in VR. It's kind of out there, especially after the news that Apple's cutting back on production and people are returning their. Yeah.
I mean, the technology itself is pretty great, but it hasn't been a commercial success.
Yeah. Do you think that's going to change at all?
Only with dramatically different, better, cheaper hardware that's more comfortable.
Yeah. Good luck with that, Michelle.
I mean, I almost agree with Chris, but just because like it's the best, most awesome, epic headset you can make, but it's too expensive, so that makes it not a viable product right now.
I mean, this is the same argument about Rivian. Okay, Rivian has better interior quality. It looks better. It does that better. This better, dude. It's not even close to being profitable, and they're cutting back production. The sales are not there, and it looks like Apple Vision Pro is going the way of Rivian. Am I wrong, Chris?
Chris H. or
The other Chris is gone. He's gonna have to earn his way back after that kind of statement.
I mean, Apple is no Rivian. One is a company that is losing money hand over fist, and the other is one of the most profitable
Yeah,
technology
but
companies in the world.
what about Apple Vision Pro versus R1T?
You know, Apple is probably pricing the Vision Pro at a level where they still make money on each sale, unlike Rivian. I wouldn't be surprised if they've lost money overall with the investment they've made in it, but they obviously see this as a platform that's going to be around for a long time.
Michelle?
It's a little bit like 3D TVs were a thing that never actually picked up for other reasons.
Interesting. Chris H, anything on your end?
No, I just was thinking about this topic on the privacy front that Robert also brought up. I can see it from their perspective of, where they've been saying they want to move slow. And I think it's because of this new approach. They're really, I think, trying to figure out how they're going to monetize this without giving up control. Like if you have all these apps that are capable of accessing all of this data that you have, how are you going to deal with this from a consumer point of view when Apple is kind of like what really sets them apart from Android is this ability to kind of like lock things down so you trust them. So if you now have, if they or other apps all of a sudden have access to this, like your whole, like all of your information, that really creates a problem. At the same end, they're going to try to monetize this in whatever way that they can so they don't lose control. It's a real conundrum for them because of the way that they're built and the revenue streams that they're kind of basing everything off of. I mean, it really is rewriting everything.
Okay, Robert, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I was listening to all the Vision Pro stuff. This is like the first Macintosh, which did not sell very well because it was underpowered and overpriced. And yet it kicked off a whole paradigm shift. This is the first of a product. The second product is scheduled for late next year or early 2026. And it's going to have a lot more GPU. It's going to have Apple Fitness on it. It's going to have a lot more content, and it's going to be lighter weight, and it's probably going to be around $2,000. The guy who said that Vision Pro is leading in VR. I agree with you. That's sort of a hard point to make right now, but the foundation of the Vision Pro is leading, and it's quite impressive when you actually
Well,
look at it from a
let me ask you this.
technology future kind of direction. Yeah.
Let me ask you this. So this next version that's going to come out, that's supposed to have bigger GPU and CPU and battery and all that. How is that different from Rivian saying R2 is coming out?
Because this company has a whole ecosystem behind it and sells 60,000 phones a day. It's not nearly the same kind of situation. Plus, this is a company that knows it can come in late. Remember, Nokia thought it had the smartphone industry wrapped up. Its CEO for 3 years after the iPhone came out said, "Oh no, no problem. Cupertino's not bothering me at all. We have all the market share. We have stores in Vietnam. They don't da 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 da." And this is a different company than Rivian. Rivian's a
I mean,
startup that
I get,
hasn't
listen,
figured it out at all yet, right?
I get that, Robert. But the thing is, Apple is not right now competing against Nokia. It's competing against Meta's version of AR, and they're progressing really
Yes.
fast too.
The real game starts in about 3 years when lightweight glasses come out. We all know this. We're not going to wear a Vision Pro to the shopping mall and walk around with it. Maybe you'll wear it in a plane because you want to watch a movie on a big screen that's as big as the plane where everybody else is looking at their iPhone or at a screen on the seat back in front of you. But yeah, it's hard to see them close. Apple's problem is it's not a startup anymore. It's a multinational company, and they have a fuckload of meetings just for one feature, and it slows them down. And that'll be interesting to see. Does it open up a space for a competitor to come in and really whack it? The Quest 3 has not whacked Apple, right?
Robert, let me ask you this. So we've been talking about Apple, their AR ambitions and the glass ambitions, which have gotten pushed out for 2 years now in Tesla Live.
Yeah.
What would it take you to say,
The
you know
Vision
what?
Pro was 2 years late, by the way. It slipped 2
What would
years
it
from
take, Robert? What would it take you to say Apple failed?
um if I see real market share shift away from phones to a new device and it's not an Apple device. What if Tesla came in with a device? I'd be buying that, right? So
Okay, but
there's an opening, but
there
there's
is a
nothing.
market share. Robert, there's a market share. There's a market share shift going on right now. Meta is doing great with their AR version.
Not really. Talk to the developers. They haven't gone really mainstream, and they haven't changed human life the way that we know the glasses will when they come. Zuckerberg's in play. I'm probably gonna have to buy a Meta glasses too, or Ray-Ban glasses coming in next year with some screens in it. That's gonna be a hot seller. That's gonna be maybe, we'll evaluate the market then.
I
My
mean, I
friend
get
Jeff says you're gonna have to
Robert.
buy
Yeah,
all of them.
I get all of that, Robert. But the fact is, people were comparing Apple's Vision Pro and saying, you know what, I would just go with the Meta version
That might
instead
be
of
the
paying
case
that
today.
price. So they are already competing.
We all know it comes down to content and ecosystem. Zuckerberg doesn't have the pieces yet put together to really make a credible run at Apple. Not yet. And maybe that'll change, but I don't see that changing anytime soon. Jeff, my friend, says Zuckerberg has the data. He's absolutely right about that. He has 3 billion users.
Yeah. Omar, anything to add on that front?
Yeah, I think obviously nobody's going to buy the Apple Vision Pro because it's $3,500, and people don't have money to spend on something so stupid that hurts your face when you put it on. And when I'm just trying to type on the thing, I actually put it on, so I'm wearing it right now. And you just try and type this thing. You're trying to type a simple Google search, and it takes like 5 minutes. So obviously, it's a very early project, but I mean, it's a very different project than the Oculus. The Oculus is really focused on games. It comes with game controllers. It's primarily used by kids. Like one time I went into their Meta Horizon metaverse, and it was all like little kids running around. I was like, playing with 5-year-olds and stuff and talking to little kids. And what Apple's kind of tried to do is actually build an operating system that is overlaid onto the physical world. So you have your windows, you can organize them around, you can have multiple apps open, and rather than having to switch between apps on your phone, all you do is move your head. Rather than having to use a mouse, all you do is look at something and then, touch your hands together, and you can manipulate the app just by looking at things and by moving your hands in the air. So I think there are a lot of ideas there that are going to be sort of the future of computing. The question is, does Apple still have that sort of magic, whatever it is, to sort of will their vision of the world into existence, or is somebody else going to do it? As Robert pointed out, their focus on privacy means they're not able to leverage their billions of users to gather data and train models that nobody else can beat, right? So they're kind of playing catch up. I mean, it's not necessarily too late for them, but it is sort of concerning. The leadership doesn't have the fire that it had in previous years to get these things, to get it done. Maybe they don't really feel the threat, but sooner or later, I think Google, they're doing pretty good at matching sort of OpenAI's capabilities. Android could become a more serious threat if Apple's not able to launch features that are absolutely state of the art in every way on the AI side.
All right. We're going to switch topics in about 5 minutes. Okay. Uzi and then Chris.
Yeah, maybe there's an argument that Apple doesn't find glasses as an existential threat to its core business. I mean that's maybe 5, 10 years down the line. I will say the failure of the Apple Vision Pro is that it's failed to kick off a virtuous cycle. I'm not sure, where we are with the developers, and the cost to just end users is way too high. Maybe that's the problem. But it, at the end of the day, if you're building a platform and you're, you have a lot of potential, but a lot of potential to fail, and I think it's with the regulatory issue, not regulatory, but with the inability to produce the Apple Vision Pro at a cheap enough cost for consumers. That's the first thing that. But then if there's no development on there, then what's the point of buying it? So it's kind of a chicken and the egg problem that Apple needs to either subsidize these and sort of take a loss like a Rivian, or figure something out if they're taking this seriously enough.
Yeah, I'd agree with Uzi here on that front. Like, it's like the killer app basically has not been really developed yet. It really seems to all really focus on gaming, and like the promises that come along with augmenting reality in like a way that is like, oh, I forgot my Apple Vision Pro or my VR headset. That just isn't there yet. On the same level that we look at our phone.
I mean, that didn't happen until iPhone 4 or even iPhone 5. So we're a few generations away from that. I don't know. I mean, maybe I don't have the vision to see the future of Vision Pro. But to me, they haven't even come close to succeeding. But, Robert knows about these things more than I do. Omar knows about these things more than I do. Omar seems to be a bit more kind of on the cautious side. Robert is optimistic, and I feel like it's already failed. Let's see what Yoda has to say.
I
Yoda.
mean, no, it's super, super early, right? When you looked at the first computers, people were like, what the hell is this? Like some green text on a screen? Like, what's the point of this, right? But in the future, we will control computers simply by moving our hands through the air, simply by looking at items, by tapping our hand together, by making gestures. You won't need to have a mouse and keyboard as often. And for the same reason our Tesla vehicles are starting to drive ourselves, which is the advancement of AI and vision capabilities. It was never possible to build an operating system like this before because that vision capability didn't exist. Now that it does exist, it's inevitably going to change the way we use our computers.
Okay, thank you, Omar. Yoda, go ahead.
Yeah, as Apple investor, I'm I'm worried and I'm not worried. Okay, so let me break it in. I think at a high level, at the highest level, computing is shifting from the sort of model as we know it, which is retrieval based, to generative, right? So that's in the data centers, there's $1 trillion of computing that's being transformed uh, as the workload has become generative rather than retrieval. Now, the average user today, depending on how heavy of a phone user you are, you might pull and check your phone 60, 120 times per day. We all do it. What are you doing when you pull out your phone? Well, you're checking your messages, you're checking your emails, you're looking things up, etc. Now, the moment that there is a device whereby you don't have to pull out your phone, that you interact through glasses, audio, what have you, it really starts to devalue the phone, which is the sort of the priced product currently of Apple. And so Apple must work extremely hard right now to figure out how to create a new form factor that does not involve you retrieving a brick from your pocket. Now, the other reason why it needs to go after sort of this vision is that the good news is that Apple has all your email, has your photos, has every sort of input that sort of the user generates, and it could use that to infer and answer your questions better. So that's the good news. The bad.
You look it up for you guys too.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. What it's lacking is the visual input to sort of append that data set of what the user sees to what the user gets in terms of other forms of input, such as emails and text and photos, etc. So for all those reasons, I really wish Apple can keep the phone going. Sure, do that, but start to really push hard on a new form factor that is hands free.
Omar.
Yeah, one of Steve Jobs' really famous sort of ideas that he embedded in his company was you have to be killing your best product or someone else will. Because in technology, everything's always evolving so fast. There's always the next step. Things don't just stay the same forever. So when the iPod was selling millions and millions of units and they started to notice that some phones were adding MP3 player functionality, and of course, they were not very good. They certainly weren't as easy to use as an iPod. But he said, look, if we don't kill the iPod, then one of these other phone makers is going to kill it for us because, hey, you've already got a cell phone. Why do I need to buy a separate device just to play music? So they killed it, and iPod sales went to zero, but they ended up building a much larger business. So just like that, we're not going to have iPhones forever in the future. I know it seems crazy today because we use these things for just about everything, but there's also some negatives, right? People are staring at their phone all the time. They're disconnected from the world. People are like falling into manhole covers because they were so, obsessed with what was going on their phone. I think a form factor of the future could look something like a watch and a pair of sunglasses, and you put on these sunglasses. They look just like normal glasses, but they can overlay any apps in your field of vision. You can talk to people, you can see the data you need to see. It can come with you, and you don't have any problems with your posture bending over and looking at a computer or something like that. So, obviously, this isn't going to happen next year or the year after that. But one day, there's going to be the product that kills the phone. And the question is Apple going to be the company to invent that? Or is it going to be another company? I don't know. In the past, it was always Apple to kill their own products. This time, it could be Apple or it could be someone else.
Uzi. Yeah, I mean, I think everyone agrees on the board right now that iPhone is not going to be the predominant form factor in 10 years, let's say, or maybe 15, 20 years. The question is, will it be Apple who creates the
Yeah.
next platform?
I mean, especially with AI, we're seeing the interface of computers change so much. The reason we had to make a user interface with windows and buttons and everything is because the computers couldn't understand us. If you can just tell the computer what you want, then what's the point of the user interface? Apple's whole thing about making easy to use user interfaces, this is really changing actually much faster. You're saying 10 years, but I mean, just look at where we were a couple of years ago on AI interfaces.
Yeah. Uzi?
Yeah, I mean, as to describe Apple's sense of urgency, there's no reason why your iPhone can't be able to do what Adobe Express can, and that's like what we're talking about with removing parts from an image. If they had that sense of I guess like killer in them, then they would be trying to take out other companies for photo editing. But obviously they're not, and it would be great as an Apple user. On the terms of the Meta Quest or the Apple Vision Pro, is the Meta Quest is used by the military for training. One like sore point, and we've talked about this before in the space, is why isn't VR being used in medicine or to train? And I think that you have the example with Palantir partnering with Meta for the U.S. military for training. It's because you can buy these headsets in mass, and then you need a developer to sort of create a simulated reality. And so, like I said about that vicious or virtuous cycle or that lack thereof, if it's too high of a cost for the hardware, then where are the developers? I don't know if they're really going to find a market for that.
Okay. I mean, we do have a lot to talk about, guys. Chris, let's wrap this Apple discussion up. Chris?
Last thing I guess I'd say to this is that, the unique aspect of our phone is just this ability to easily put it in our pocket. It lasts all day. We can retrieve the information we want. It seems that they're just trying to replace the screen that's in our, the TV screen that we have. And that is just a cumbersome thing to constantly carry around with you, possibly lose, sit on, break. The phone is more reliable for these type of things. I don't know. I find this is we are far away from this actually becoming like something that will replace our phone. Like I think we're all agreeing on.
Yeah, I don't know if we're all agreeing on that. I think in 5 to 10 years, it's going to be obvious that Neuralink is going to replace the iPhone. Uzi?
Yeah, I just wanted to shout out this space.
Can you guys hear Uzi?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Yeah, Uzi's having connection issues. Okay, Michelle, let's talk about Uzi, did you wanna? No, he just dropped off. Michelle, let's talk about the AI agents, the video that you posted, and it's kind of going viral after Robert Scoble reposted it.
Oh, well, that's news to me. But this morning
Well,
I saw somebody.
10,000 views on it already. AI phone agents are here. This is getting real, folks. Here, I pinned it at the top. Take it over, Michelle.
Well, this morning on the TikTok short video platform, saw someone posting this, and I contacted them, and they were able to give me the original. So they just want to say they're like a logistics company calling another logistics company, and the way that it works in the trucker world is that you would call a broker, and they would find you a load. Let's say you took a particular cargo somewhere and you want to go back home, you're calling a broker to find a load from this city to this other city. This caller saw a particular load he was interested into on social media, was trying to call this broker to obtain the contract to do that load. He have any like load number, and the AI replied to it, "Oh, just give me the origin and destinations. I probably know the load you're talking about," kind of thing. And but they were able to identify that this load was already taken, and was like, "Can I help you find another load?" The interruptions were super short and really rapid. I think they're like preparing like responses, and as soon as you go silent, it goes with one it generated maybe a second ago, and it interrupts you right away, and was like aggressively asking him questions to stay on the line not very long. And I know these brokers sometimes they're like that. They just want to get you off the phone or get you a load. But this caller said like, "Are you AI?" And it said, "Yes, can I help you find another load?" And he was like, "No, no." Like the equivalent of pressing zero was like, "Up, give me the actual broker." And he was like, "Okay, I'll transfer you." So he stopped recording and was able to get a real human on the phone. But I contacted this person. They gave me the original video, and they were like, "Yeah, sure, you can post it." But I was like, "Yeah, this really happening." Some AI agents are able to field really like simple matching a load to a driver type of calls.
Thank you, Michelle. If you all haven't seen the video, it's at the top of your screen. Michelle did a great job explaining it already. Michelle, it was really interesting too when I watched that video, how terse really the AI agent was with the caller. And you mentioned this is how they are in the trucking world. Um, they either find you a load or want to get you off to the phone. So I guess that makes sense. Um, Michelle, question for you: why do you think the human said, "No, just transfer me to a broker"? Because the AI agent was doing fine. Like it didn't make a mistake at all, right?
Well, for the same reason, this person I invited to come talk with us about AI, he was like, "No way!" Like he's like, he probably does not use the self checkout, and that's for sure.
Mark, have you seen this video at the top?
No.
Michelle, you mentioned that this is a Salesforce agent from the voice of it. How were you able to identify that?
Not I'm not very confident at all on this, and I was trying to get anyone on the record from any of my contacts over there, if that was Salesforce or not. It doesn't sound like anything else I know on the market, and they were the one bragging about like onboarding 1,000 clients before the year. Well, I don't know how many days are left in this year's. Like there's not much. It was a pure guess now. Out of nothing.
Gotcha. So it's interesting to me that the human said no, transfer me to an agent. And in FSD, we're seeing trends of even though the software is so good, handles 99% of the miles if you let it do its thing, if you let it cook, and yet the take rate is, by my estimate, and this can be conservative, is somewhere between 10 to 20%. I personally feel unsafe when I'm not using FSD when I'm driving myself, but most people disagree. And also, um, I mean, but these people haven't used it, right? So, and there are many examples like this where people are kind of resisting AI adoption. Um, Michelle, by the end of the year, or let's say next year, how widely adopted do you think these call center AI agents will be?
I mean, you got to think that most of what's annoying about the experience of calling in a call center as a caller is having to wait on hold and fight the menu that you press the numbers and don't miss them listing the numbers. And it's like that's what makes the experience horrible. If people are reluctant at first, that's to be expected. But once they're busy and all they want is try and find a load from this city to this city, and this thing is just like makes a 40-second call what used to be 5-minute call. At some point, once they get their first good experience, it's gonna win them over. But every single user has to be won over by having an excellent first impression of it.
Every single user has to be won over. Okay. Omar, anything to add on Salesforce AI agents for call centers?
Yeah, I think that this is probably going to see pretty rapid adoption just because these sort of call centers already have heavy use of automated systems. They're just far less sophisticated. So if you can get something that's even smarter and replace it with that, I mean, it's going to not only reduce costs, it's going to actually be a better experience for the users. In the interim, there's a gap between the experience people want and what the technology is able to deliver today. In the interim, obviously, there's going to be frustrating experiences where you say something and the thing just completely doesn't understand you or does something weird. Um, but for the most part, I think probably what people will experience is actually resolving the issue much more quickly, reducing costs, improving customer satisfaction. You're not talking to somebody in an Indian call center. You're just talking to an AI that gets straight to the point. You don't have to wait for them to type and look things up. They can just execute actions instantly. And, given a few years, I think probably you will never talk to another human on the phone for many of these businesses. It'll be just entirely AI, and you'll be happier probably. But then you won't even be calling. It'll probably be your AI calling their AI.
Michelle, I was listening to a CNBC interview actually before that. Uzi, go ahead.
Yeah, so in Omar's like future reality, you'll have your own AI calling theirs. But so would that be a chat GPT or would you have your own AI in that?
I don't know. I mean, you'd probably have some type of assistant that you could just ask to do anything for you. You could say, "Hey, I forgot to do my car payment. Can you go log on to my bank account and do that?" Or, "Hey, can you call my doctor and tell him that I actually am going on vacation?" Or, as a matter of fact, it might say, "Okay, I see you booked that vacation. Do you want me to call your doctor and tell them you can't make it?" I mean, it's kind of clear that this is the experience you're kind of building up to a virtual assistant. Right now, it's kind of just in this chatbot form, but the next level is really taking that and allowing it to execute actions on your behalf, eliminating the need to use the computer entirely.
Michelle, going back to the Apple Intelligence, I was watching an interview on CNBC today, and um, the analyst was AI intelligence. Apple Intelligence is not going to kick off another round of super cycle for iPhone upgrades. That the adoption of Apple Intelligence and services will take time. That it's not perfect. It kind of summarizes texts and emails, and that's about it so far. Do you agree or disagree with that?
Yeah, and that's a good description of where it's at right now, what's what available right now. And the hardware cutoff is iPhone 15 from what I understand or what they've been inferring so far. So at some point, if they deliver a valuable product, you might see anybody that does not yet has an iPhone 15 try and make the jump to like over the line. But they would have to deliver something valuable to the existing users for them to convince the people with older iPhones that are probably still working super fine. I'm using 3 iPhones tonight and they're all working great. 8, 12, and 15. And like you would have to give something valuable for people to upgrade.
Okay. Omar, would you like to add anything to that?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that sometimes the Apple Intelligence summarizations are hilariously bad. This is a relatively small model that needs to run quickly on the device. That's sort of a fine tune specific to the summarization task. And, you know, just using it on my own phone, sometimes you read the summary, you're like, what? It's not actually making it clear. It's like, what on earth is this text about? And it's often nothing like what the summary says. One example I saw here on X, somebody got a text from his mom. His mom texted, "Oh man, this hike is killing me." And Apple Intelligence summarized it as his mom had attempted suicide going on hike. And, obviously that can be kind of alarming to see, But of course, then once he read the text, you realize that it was just, sort of bad summarization. So of course, these models will improve, but right now they can often be confusing as to what the notification is.
All right, thank you very much, Omar. I'm going to go to Rich Peter in a second, but before that, um, if you're watching this on YouTube, please hit the like button and let me know what you think about Apple Intelligence so far in live chat. And if you're watching the recording, you can do that below the video in the comments. If you have used it, if you have downloaded it, let us know your experience so far. And also, let me know if you think Apple will create the next platform, whether with VR or AR glasses or something else, or if another company will do it. I'm interested in your thoughts on this. Rich Bira, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to your comment on the CNBC show that you saw in regards to the super cycle. Unfortunately, I saw so I have a 15 Pro, and I was like, there's no real reason to get a 16 Pro, for the camera control button, but in 18.2, there's now photo intelligence. I think it's called something else, not photo intelligence, but you're able to hit that camera control button and point your phone at something and say, what is this? And you're not going to get that on the 15 Pro. So when
I
they
mean,
start to,
that's fine, but like, do you just not know what you're looking at usually?
no, I mean, you can look at you could walk by a restaurant and say, like what kind of food did they serve? Or you could look at a business, like I saw a couple of different examples where like you're out in the garden and you're looking at what the hell is this weed? How do I get rid of it? Or what's happening with my plant? And that button is also able to pipe into Chat GPT now in 18.2. And so not having that button, uh, the camera control button, they call it, I think is going to start to create people wanting to get the 16, the people that want AI.
Okay, so Rich Bira says that the camera button on the side of the iPhone that Apple just introduced, iPhone 16. Rich, you have to put yourself on mute, and I think I have to remind you this every single time you come up.
It's not
Which
every
is
time,
really
but I know.
okay. Michelle.
Not necessarily the camera button. It's sure that it helps, but when you say like, do you not know what's in front of you? For blind people, it's been a game changer. For like they have to go into the ChatGPT the app or Be My Eyes and then point it at something, and it can tell you like, oh no, that's the blue shirt. You probably want the like gray shirt with your black pants or whatever you're trying to do. For a blind person, it's a complete game changer. But I know a blind person that has a 15 and they're super happy. They're not gonna upgrade from the 15 to the 16 just to get the button. But if somebody needs to upgrade and they're blind, I'm gonna definitely recommend like, oh, you want the button if that makes it easier for you.
Complexity.
Uh, so this debate is, rather clear. The CNBC commentary on it is very good on that point. I have had AI features on my mobile for, I think, 9 months now. It's a Samsung. And out of the 9 months, I can count on my 10 fingers that amount of times that I have tried to use maybe voice assist or voice typing or summarizing with emails. It isn't in a person's natural in a personal natural routine to do that, first of all. And second of all, it isn't even that good yet that I would want to do that. I can go through the email faster than that. AI will have a summary for me, and I'll still have to go through the email after that if it has something important. So it is definitely not going to spark a growth cycle like Dan Ives or some people want you to believe.
Thank you, Complexity. Complexity, do you think this camera button is going to become something big? Let's say 2-3 years down the line. I mean, Apple does not really add pieces to the iPhone. This is kind of a first in a long time where they added a button. It's a big deal. Do you think it's going to be a huge, product sale driver in 3 years?
No, because first of all, I have only used the button once. It was last week. I wasn't that impressed either. And my Android does the same thing. The only difference is that I have to just double click my power button and it will open the camera app for me. It can flip the screen that way. It can even take the photo using 3 taps on the power button. I see no point in increasing an external button, which brings complexity in manufacturing. Just as a selling point, I was thinking that we are going to a point where we'll be losing buttons from phones, not increasing them.
Michelle.
I helped another client disable the button because they were like tripping it, like not on purpose all the time. And there's like somewhere in the settings you can just disable it.
But what do you think about the button to the side? Do you think it's going to become a big deal?
No, I don't. I haven't used it much. It's not really convenient. It's a flop. Apple needs an Elon Musk. They've got incredible engineering, incredible technology, decades of history, and they don't know which way to row. So they're swimming in circles. Man, this company with some great leadership could be putting out some truly amazing products in this day and age. So I do kind of wonder what the succession plan is for Tim Cook. This company needs a leader. Um, what I'm seeing is a company that's really showing its age.
Omar, earlier we had a question in live chat that asked about how does Apple Intelligence compare to XAI and other AI companies, product services that we've seen so far in terms of wokeness? And in conjunction with what we're discussing right now, do you think Apple is getting limited because of its woke culture?
No, I don't think wokeness is a factor here. I think they just suck at building services in AI. So, Grok is far more advanced in terms of the output it produces. Grok is a fairly large language model, getting similar ELO scores to some variants of GPT-4o. What Apple Intelligence has shipped is a series of very small models that are fine tuned to specific tasks. So they're not even general purpose LLMs in many cases. It's really just focused on proofreading or summarization. And they're really designed to be fast and efficient and run on the device. So they're far less sophisticated than an LLM like Grok or even a much crappier LLM than that. But what makes them notable is the fact that they're going to be installed on every iPhone. They're going to be running, they're going to be part of every iPhone. So they're going to be some of the most commonly used models out there. But they're really small, simple models that run on your phone rather than these large, huge models that take a whole data center to run.
Thanks, Omar. Uzi?
Yeah, I'd agree with Omar's assessment that it's a merit issue, that they kind of suck. Personally, it took me 3 months to get like a computer battery repaired, and they don't keep track of your conversations. From what I've seen with the Apple Car as well, that was a catastrophic failure. I think for the most part, Apple has had a tremendous run of success, but they're on autopilot. And so building the muscle to build a new market doesn't seem to be there without, a Steve Jobs or an Elon Musk.
Omar, that Flexity.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention, just buying these iPhones. I just keep buying these iPhones like an idiot. And I just go in and it's just such a confusing process just buying this phone that they make all their money on. They're like, okay, wait over here. Even though you bought it in advance, we told you to come during this time. So you're waiting for like, 15, 30 minutes. Then they finally let you in. They say, okay, come over here. Okay, now stand over here. Okay, good. Now talk to this person. I had to talk to 5 or 6 different people. move to 3 different locations before they could finally sell me my phone. And, in past years, it was just like in and out. That's why I would go to the Apple store. It's like, wow, fast, simple, easy. They've really nailed the retail experience. And it's such a insane process now. I think it's really reflective of a lot of the sort of bloat at the company.
Yeah. But hey, their CEO is not posting political tweets, Maybe that'll help them develop the next AR. Inflexity.
And just to demonstrate their next level thinking, so when Bloomberg came out with the report that why Apple scrapped with the Apple partnership with BYD for the car, they actually said one thing that was like, crazy to me. They said that Apple not only developed the entire battery for the car, but then they gave away that battery entirely for free. They didn't even patent it or license it. And now today, BYD uses the battery that Apple developed using their money, and BYD is a successful company while Apple had to scrap their project.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if I would classify BYD as a successful company at this point. They have a lot of volume, but they're producing more hybrids than pure EVs. There's no evidence that I can see that they're making money on their EVs, pure EVs. So they do nothing on FSD. So I don't know if I would classify that as. Anyway, let's not get diversion here. Dr. Strange, go ahead.
Hi, folks. Thanks for giving me the mic. Appreciate it. I have this space or the timing of the space on my calendar, but unfortunately last week I couldn't make it. And then today I joined a little late. So I know you guys are speaking about Apple's AI. Uh, I guess the only question I had was there was reference this to CNBC special. If you guys can provide me the name of that show and what that was about, I'd appreciate it. Uh, but other than that,
Not a
Apple's
CNBC
really,
special, not a CNBC. It's basically an analyst talking on an interview, a sell side analyst talking
and what
about
was that
how
about?
AI. You can just go back and listen to the. Thank you very much, Hank.
All right, thanks for the space. It's been great listening to all y'all talk. I kind of just wanted to. So my background is I'm a electrical foreman at a pretty small company that manages. I don't know. I maybe got between 5 to 8 people working for me for the day, and using AI has actually revolutionized. I hate to use the word because it sounds cliche, but I mean the way that I do my job is completely different based on AI. Um, I'm not what I would call a very smart person. I understand concepts very well, but actually doing the structured work of it is difficult. For example, I know what an Excel document should look like, but going through and performing the calculations has been a little bit more difficult. But now I just tell Grok, hey man, give me a Excel formula that makes anything with 7 cells in it turn red, and then it just generates it out for me. So I mean, the productivity side of it's been amazing. I've also carried a Samsung and a iPhone with me at the same time concurrently for work for the past 10 years, and so I'm kind of excited to see the Samsung versus iPhone AI race to see which one I kind of pull out more. I remember the day that Google took over, or smartphones took over the laptop. I was sitting there on my laptop and I needed to Google something. So I pulled out my phone and I was already on my laptop. And I remember that day as clear as like yesterday. But thanks for the time. And I just wanted to say it's been a great space.
Thank you, Hank. Michelle.
When you said Google, it just made me think about the 2018 Google I/O presentation where Google was presenting us this AI that was able to go out and call a hairdresser and make your appointment. And now with what we've seen today, that started rolling out. It was in the other direction, but like AI is able to make phone calls are becoming a real thing. This is quite wild.
Dungeons and Dragons characters, implementing that strategy to your workers is actually a lot of fun.
Okay, thank you, Hank, for joining us. Joey.
Hey, yeah, love the space, everyone. I mean, I tend to think that all these LLMs will be commoditized and that the Mag 7 are going to be the ones who get all the value.
Okay, thank you, Joey. Uzi.
Somewhat of a topic change, if that's all right. And it's kind of
Yes.
so. There's this company called Character AI, and a lot of the brain rot YouTubers have been talking about this 13-year-old boy fell in love with like Daenerys Targaryen LLM, and then unfortunately committed suicide, which is really interesting. But I don't know if we want to talk about that.
Yeah, I actually saw a YouTube thumbnail about that was published about 2 days ago. Is that recent news? Because I kind of remember that from a year ago.
Yeah, I think it happened at the beginning of the week.
Okay, so why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's basically it. I mean, the mother is very upset, and she's calling for the Michelle's waving his hand, but the
Yeah,
mother doesn't want.
Michelle's like waving his arms right now. He's going left and right, jumping up and down. Michelle, go
Yes.
ahead.
This it's the fact that it came back in the news in the last 10 days or so is that it was I'm blanking on the word I have plus say. It was like the judge decided something. What do you call it? The legal proceedings
Okay.
proceeded. So that's why it happened a while ago, and the judge came out with his decision, and they're gonna be going and sentencing. But he was kind of not happy about how the AI was triggering the correct help responses when he was explicit about wanting to commit, but when it was implied indirectly, it did not understood that it was the teenager was making reference to committing, and then it said like sure, come over, and then he committed, which was like unfortunate. But it's dangerous when we have young people completely immersed in thinking they're talking with something sentient when it's just AI. So there's a real society debate on how it should be approached with young, vulnerable people.
Thank you, Michelle, for that clarification and your comment. Yeah, I mean, I always encourage people to use AI and ChatGPT or Gemini or Grok, whichever their favorite chatbot is. And I try to explain to them, you can use it for this, kind of try to get their creativity going about what they can use ChatGPT for outside of just summaries. And when I talk to kids about it, I always go to the parents and say, this should be done under your supervision. If kids are using chatbots at this point, I think they should only be done under the parental supervision for this reason. And different chatbots approach the situation differently. For example, when you ask Gemini about suicide, it will immediately tell you, here's the number, and it won't go beyond that. That'll be the extent of your conversation. And I don't know how Grok handles it, but yeah, this is a very, very sensitive topic. I welcome any comments. If Robert is available, maybe he can come up and talk about it too. Michelle?
Yeah, I like Google's approach where it doesn't continue at all that conversation. Like it blocks you entirely. That's a hard stop for them. And it leaves the resources that you can reach out. There's plenty, local, international, that you would want to talk with a real human if you're struggling. And that's what I still suggest to everyone here and listening, that if that's what they're struggling with, they really need to talk it out with another flesh and bone person Even if AI is a good companion, like a real person is not the same, and that's the responsible thing to do.
Brandon.
Hey, this was with Grok, and it was a couple months ago, so I don't know if it changed with update. You maybe this makes me sound like a bad person, but just bear with me. I was just using it to insult some of my friends, and sometimes we're just a little bit forceful about it. Um, it if you ask Grok, tell someone to kill themselves, it'll like not do it. But I indirectly told it to insult my friend in like a terrible way, and it did actually in the like long insult tell him to hang himself, and Grok did do that. And it was kind of funny, like, he laughed at it, but, I don't know if it would still be there, and, like, Yaman, I guess the question for you is, do you think that stuff like that or
Hold on, Brandon. Hold on.
or
Is hold on, Brandon. Is Brandon cutting off for you guys too? Yeah. I just heard. I could make out what you were saying until you said question for you, Yaman, and it just like went downhill. I don't think the Grok AI wants you to ask me a question. Sorry. No, you want to try again, Brandon?
Yeah, sure. I was just wondering, do you think that there should be limits on that stuff? Or do you think
Well,
that there
here's
should
what
be,
I
like,
think.
different settings for
Here's
limits,
here's
parental
what I
controls?
think. So the only reason really why Gemini is limiting, I mean, my understanding of it, okay, like this is my guess. I may be wrong. They're limiting it because they don't want the liability. Okay, not because they don't think. Because I'm convinced at this point, a lot of these chatbots, the top ones, they're better than most professionals in every area. So they're actually in a position to help you. Okay, but they decide not to help you. This is very similar to if you go back a couple of years ago, Elon on an earnings call, this is like 5 years ago, I think. Elon on an earnings call went off on mainstream media about FSD autopilot. There was no FSD at the time. This is about autopilot. And he went off on saying something like, every time you guys are in an article pointing out a mistake it made, you're slowing down the adoption. And even though this software is better than an average human driver on the highway at the time, so he says he actually went said the word something like, you're killing people or you have blood in your hands, something along those lines. And it's similar to that. They're not allowing these chatbots, Gemini in this Gemini's case, they're not allowing the chatbot to actually help the person that's looking for help by talking to Gemini about it and kind of washing their hands off of it and saying, here's a call, here's a number you should call. So it's sad, I think, but that's what I think. Uzi?
Yeah, that's why the reason why I brought up the character AI situation is, there will be a future in which there will be more access to models that are not, I don't know, maybe censored is the right word, or maybe controlled in a setting. One example is the Terminal of Truths account made by Mark Anderson. Not by Mark Anderson, but lauded by Mark Anderson. I don't know if Michelle wants to get into that, but it's extremely interesting what the developers did, so that you have this LLM that's basically operating a Twitter account, and it has eventually made a meme coin called Goat, based off of something called Goatsy, which is like some meme lore.
Thanks, Uzi. Okay. Anything else on this topic? Omar, would you like to say anything about Gemini kind of cutting off communication once you start talking about suicide and just showing you some number?
I mean, an LLM is the ultimate, I think, therapist, right? Because it's not actually a person and it knows everything. It's heard all of the world's stories. I mean, I often find it interesting to talk to the LLM about pretty much anything. And you can really just, you know, share details that you might be embarrassed to share with the person. And there's no person there. It's just statistic, probability. Here's the most probable response, right? So probably an LLM could do very well and people could feel that they could really tell it anything. There's no person that's really there. Um, but they're just kind of worried about the legal liability. So I think that there should probably be maybe a release of liability or something for these companies so that they can help these people. If people talk to them, they can hopefully try and get them to get help and not just stop the conversation, but actually try and help and tell them to connect with somebody, but also it doesn't have to be just a hard stop.
Yeah, and on top of that, ChatGPT, for example, actually memorizes some of the things that you said in all of your conversations, and it maybe knows how you want to be communicated to. This person on the 800 hotline isn't going to know anything about you until a few minutes into it. So I think this chatbot is actually in a better position to help you out in a matter of crisis than an 800 hotline. Michelle?
LLMs have the potential to revolutionize mental health.
Exactly. Michelle?
Well, in the liability debates, both sides of what you guys are talking about were argued as strongly as the other, because if a user is leaning onto the anonymity of the interaction to open themselves more, and then it has a much more valuable interactions in results. So yeah, there's a liability in not helping the user as well, and it's always legal stuff that slows down progress. But going wild and breaking things when it includes children's specifically, that's always more dangerous.
Okay, any other comments on this? Otherwise, we're going to switch topics. And then I think around 9:30 Eastern, we may have Wes come up and join AI amateurs if he's available. But we'll see about that. Okay, so no comments on this. All right. Michelle, I also want to ask you about Anthropic's um, Claude computer use. Can you tell us anything about that?
It's actually kind of wild, but short of releasing an awesome new model, they updated an update. They gave us an updated model, but with this cool little ability to run some sort of small container. So not maybe not your whole computer, but a little thing that can browse the web, and you tell it to do things, and it does things. So it's kind of funny, like you control it and ask it like go use ChatGPT, and it goes on the ChatGPT website. And the ChatGPT website you can use even without logging in, like for a little bit, but it's asking you for a captcha, and Claude solved the captcha, and then use ChatGPT for free. But it really have to open your mind about like you can tell it to do stuff on the web, and it's gonna screenshot the web page, figure out what's on the picture, click on something, screenshot the web page again, figure out what to do uh, based on what you asked it to do. It's kind of a very visual and very real feeling of what like an agent that you give some abilities to is able to do.
Thank you, Michelle. That sounds pretty impressive. Omar, anything to say about that? Have you looked into Claude computer use?
Yeah, I think it's incredibly significant. This is a topic that I've been thinking about for a while. Andre Karpathy, I think a few years ago, invested in a company that was looking to do something like this, to build a system that could use a computer. And it turns out LLMs can use a computer. So you don't need a special type of AI model. It turns out the general model can actually just take in images of the screen and click and use a computer, right? So this is a potentially revolutionary capability because LLMs have all this intelligence, but they're kind of stuck in the chat box. If you could actually let the LLM use your computer, you could give it instructions to do everything, right? I mean, think about it. You can do anything with a computer. You could tell the LLM, okay, when you get an email from this person, I want you to transfer this money to this person, but text me first. And go into the uh, Gmail account. It could just do anything, right? Order DoorDash, anything you can think of that can be done on a computer. So essentially, you're connecting LLMs to sort of this universal interface that's a computer, and really sort of taking their potential to the next level. Obviously, the accuracy is not going to be 100%, right? It's going to fail to do some tasks. It's going to struggle with some things, but the models are going to continue to get better and better. And what is an employee in sort of a white collar job today than someone who uses a computer, right? So, I mean, many times with a remote office, you don't even see the person. They're just on a computer to you, right? Now, if you have an AI that can use a computer, they can start to really do things, not just, be there in a chat box, but actually be a part of an organization. You'd start to see companies where there are more AI agents working for the company than actual humans.
Interesting. Thank you very much, Omar. So Omar says it's a very significant point in time, Claude computer use. Chris or Uzi, have you guys had a chance to look at this?
I haven't. I'm excited to see it though.
There you go. Come to AI Amateurs and learn the latest in AI news. We've talked about a bunch of different things today. And earlier, we had a great Tesla Live Space too. The Tesla Live Space from earlier today, we had Chuck Cook talk to us about actually Smart Summon on Hardware 3 versus Hardware 4. I also published that hour of the space as a standalone video on the YouTube channel, the link to which is at the top of your screens. Let's continue Claude computer use. Just for fun, go ahead.
Sorry, you wanted to keep going on computer use?
Yeah,
Claude?
before, okay, then let's, yeah, is that something you want to talk about or no?
Yeah, I had a question on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, so I think this is for Michelle or anyone else who has been playing around with it. So I tested out the computer use API a bit, but found it was getting rate limited a lot on some pretty basic tasks, like just testing it out, collecting some info from websites, and putting it into an Excel file. And I don't want this to be like a tech help session. So to generalize it, just wondering if you or anyone else that has been playing around with it has general tips for people on sort of what they found works really well when using that computer use API.
Well, to put it simply, it just kind of sucks, right? So it doesn't really work the way we would imagine it to, right? Otherwise, the world would be changed already. But one thing we can be sure of is the models are going to continue to get better and better. And more things are going to start to work. So now you're going to have to do more quote unquote prompt engineering to get it to actually do something useful for you. In the future, these models are going to improve rapidly. We're going to see other companies like OpenAI, XAI, others also put out models that can use computers. And I think it'll just get very simple where it gets to the point where you can just describe it just like you would to a human and they can use it just like a pro computer user.
Uzi, then Michelle.
Well, Michelle's going to answer his question, so you should go ahead.
Michelle?
You have to be as good at prompt engineering as you would do with most AIs, and like Omar said, it's as bad as it's ever going to get, and it's like it works, but we're just like impressed it works at all at this time. It's not amazing yet.
Okay, just for fun, if you need any tech support, you can call Best Buy Geek Squad. They can solve it, then Michelle is your next.
My requirement, if you send me a tech support question, is that you send me your ChatGPT attempt at solving the problem.
I tried to ask Michelle a couple of questions. He's always very attentive, and he's great at it. But a couple of times, he sent me a ChatGPT response. Just for the fun, go ahead.
Yeah, I guess this is not a tech help question. Michelle, have you or has anyone else who's played around with it found any tasks that this computer use API has been particularly good at?
I mean, solving the CAPTCHA was great. Usually I hit the like, send me a different CAPTCHA 20 times before I decide which one I'm gonna try to do. I have like fear about those. But I can offload that to. I sometimes take a screenshot and send it to AI to solve CAPTCHA instead of doing it.
Thanks.
All right. What else do we need to talk about? Michelle, what about Anthropic's Sonnet 3.5 and Haiku 3.5? Are those major milestones for you? I mean, one of the challenges I have sometimes when I'm preparing for this space is that there are hundreds of news. There are so many companies coming out with basically the same thing over and over again, whether it's images or video or chatbots. Um, so it's hard to kind of even gauge what's important, what isn't. Like I wasn't when I brought up cloud computer use. I knew it was one of the things that we probably had to talk about, but I didn't realize Omar was going to say this is a major milestone. You know that he's been waiting for this. That Andre Karpathy invested in a company years ago that is trying to do the same thing. Like I didn't realize that part of it. So how do you kind of gauge what's important, what isn't, Michelle?
Well, I give AI research papers to Google Notebook LM, and I listen at a TLDR 5 8 minute version of it, and then I decide if it's valuable. The one that I found most valuable this week was the Apple paper, sponsored paper about how LLMs cannot actually reason, and these like tests that are trying to score these LLMs of how good they're able at reasoning with like riddles and stuff. They just tried switching the nouns in the examples, and their results tanked dramatically. So somehow this was pointing out a flaw that these models have been compared using the same questions, but kind of like learned the questions instead of the actual reasoning capabilities.
Thank you, Michelle. Michelle, does Claude computer use put Anthropic in the same at the same level as OpenAI in your mind, or even ahead, maybe?
It was cool when the first OpenAI Mac native app came out, and now it's on Windows too. But as they're showing off that capability, it's kind of strong arming the big guys to release something like that, either through Microsoft, and it's going to be a co-pilot thing because like it's Microsoft, it's in Windows, and it's linked into your OS, or somebody else is gonna implement it with API, and then OpenAI comes out with it and crushes that startup by releasing it themselves.
Thank you, Michelle. Omar, what do you think? Do you think Anthropic computer use, cloud computer use, puts Anthropic in the same bucket or ahead of OpenAI? Do you think OpenAI will be able to release something soon that challenges cloud computer use?
I think that Anthropic has always been up there with OpenAI. Anthropic, obviously founded by ex OpenAI people who didn't want to be part of OpenAI anymore. So their model has always been up there, arguably one of the best or the best, even beating GPT-4o at times. I mean, the computer use is something that I think everybody's going to be able to do. It is something that you can string together even with GPT-4o models. So I'm not sure it's really going to be a differentiator for them. They were kind of just the first ones to do it. And from the sound of it, it sounds like there's still quite a bit of work to do before the economic impact is really there for the model reliability to be there for it to really be economically viable relative to just hiring a low wage worker, right? So it's going to take some time. I don't think they're going to have it as an advantage for that long. So they're probably one of the top 3 or top 5 model trainers out there. And yeah, sometimes they do put out things before anybody else, like computer use.
Great, thank you. Uzi?
Yeah, maybe it's a question for Michelle, but how does it compare to Microsoft Power Automate?
Michelle?
No Microsoft's products so far took over my mouse and clicked on something yet. That was like the game changer, like the same game changer when we had like cool AI text that we could text each other, and then they started creating images, and we were like, "Whoa, What's that? That's the kind of like shift change it's being experienced right now.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Let's switch gears again. So earlier we talked about Apple Intelligence. Then we talk about Salesforce AI agents rolling out in real life, which is amazing. We went through an example of that Michelle brought up in the video. We just talked about Anthropic cloud computer use. These are all very major topics. And now I also want to ask Omar about XAI API. We mentioned it in the last AI Amateurs episode. We talked a little about it, but it was very new at the time. And now a week has passed. Omar, any new thoughts, any updated thoughts on XAI's API?
Yeah, XAI has really been putting out some incredible stuff, I have to say. The API launched, which is great. People have been using it, adding support to different products. It's great that Grok's an option there because it obviously has access to X and it's just much more permissive. But they've also done Grok Vision. So now Grok can take in images in it as input. And my first test last night, it was pretty impressive with Grok 2. It was really able to demonstrate state of the art vision capabilities, which I think is really exciting for the future of FSD even. And then we also have a video today put out by Supermicro and an influencer who was sponsored by them showing XAI's data center in Memphis. We had Nvidia put out a press release and a tweet and say, hey, these guys build out the largest training cluster ever. And just kind of showing the design of that and the pace at which they built it out. It's like, man, these guys really have the grit and execution ability to just spin up large clusters, train the most powerful models. And I mean, look at how rapidly they've caught up with Grok. They've basically cloned OpenAI, so that's like when somebody says, oh, they stole this technology from me or whatever, like what's his name? Martin Eberhard says, oh, they stole Tesla from me. If you're the real founder, you can always go and create another one. And I think Elon said, all right, well, I don't have control of OpenAI. I'll just go create another OpenAI. And he literally did. And look at how fast he has the exact same product now. Not quite as full featured in every checkbox, but it's basically the same thing. And it's really good. So I'm just amazed at that. They've got a bigger cluster than OpenAI. The model's now built into X. It's really good. It's a state of the art model. It has vision capabilities. And we've got Grok 3 coming. So really impressed with XAI and how rapidly they've ascended to become one of the top model providers out there.
Thank you, Omar. That's a great summary of where XAI stands today. We have two hands on the board we're going to get to in a second. But Hollis, thank you very much for the great words again in YouTube live chat. We're getting a lot of great responses on AI Amateurs podcast. People are really loving it. I think it's filling a need. If you want to help us grow, please share this space, whether on X or YouTube, with with your family, friends who may be a little scared approaching AI or who's looking to increase their productivity using AI. I think this space has a great future ahead of it. With that, let's go to Uzi.
Yeah, let me say, you also have a great host that allows the conversation to flow, but knows his shit. So I appreciate you, Iman. I want to say about the X cluster is that I think it was at 100,000 GPUs, which is extremely impressive. And I was watching this video from this YouTuber. He said this. I think maybe it was the general data center, or maybe for comparison, but they're about 25,000 to 50,000. So XAI is about double that, which is extremely impressive. The rate at which XAI has been developing is extremely exciting, and I think the API. There's a lot of people interested in the X platform, absolutely, but as a new service that differentiates the API for Grok than others. And so, there will be some people that are entrepreneurial and take advantage of that. And I won't give the ideas away, but one idea that I know someone else is not doing is you could do like a newspaper with the top stories, but Grok already has that covered. So look to different forms that the API can provide, which we don't have now.
Thank you, Z. Chris.
Yeah, I'm going to second that. It is so impressive what they've been doing over there. Those videos, I highly recommend you guys take a look at that. Anyone who hasn't seen it, I am curious to know from anyone that's been experimenting or playing around with this, has anyone had the ability of utilizing or tested the XAPI system of actually working in conjunction with your X account and being able to like query it for information on, for example, your own comments, your posts, things like that, summarizing things of your account or other people's accounts or your followers and stuff? This is an area that I've interestingly found this to be lacking. And I'm wondering if I'm not approaching this correctly or if there's a secondary API access level that exists that anyone's aware of.
Who wants to take that question from Chris? Michelle?
You can have an API from you to Grok, but it's not like Grok has the ultimate API to X when you're interacting with Grok. Of course, you can trigger it so it makes some sort of search of X and is going to ingest that search and generate that response with what it searched. But it's not like the Grok you're talking with has like the complete transparency, fire hose, unlimited precise filtered access to X or like extremely precise questions you can ask it.
Thank you, Michelle. All right, we have Wes Wallen in the audience. If you would like to come up to the speaker board, maybe we can talk a little bit about Nvidia in the next 15, 20 minutes. Nvidia is going to announce earnings, I believe, soon. And Apple also is going to. This is the earnings week. So we have a bunch of news ahead of us. And I'm curious about his updated thoughts on Nvidia. Now, this has been a great episode. I highly recommend people go back and listen from the beginning. You can even do it on YouTube, even during the live stream, or you can wait until the space here ends. You can do it on X as well. Omar, anything else on your mind when it comes to AI amateurs? Tomorrow in Tesla Live, we're going to talk about Volkswagen news. Ford announced its numbers, Mercedes and others. So Tesla Live is going to be pretty busy tomorrow. So let's talk non-Tesla topics right now. Wes, welcome. How are you? Wes, you're on mute. Okay. Omar, anything else on your end?
No, not that I can think of.
Okay. Do you still hold Nvidia, or did you lighten up, or did you buy more?
I'm still holding Nvidia.
Okay. Michelle?
It's like we almost forgot to talk about what dropped today and before the show, in opposition to after the show. Grok can receive and understand and describe images for you.
We just talked about that. We just talked about that. Omar just talked about that. Did I miss it? Or are you going to say something new on that?
I mean, I suggest people use my trick of asking it to describe the image like you would do to a blind person, and it gives much more high quality responses like any other AI capable of doing this. It's a prompt engineering trick to ask it that, because it will describe a screenshot and include the time and other like metadata that are maybe details, but part of the context of the image you're trying to analyze.
Thank you, Michelle. Wes, go ahead. Yeah, I think Wes is having some connection issues. Wes, I'm gonna move you down to listener and then bring you back up again. Let's see if that works. Michelle, can you explain that trick one more time, please?
Any AI capable of analyzing images, if you ask it to describe the picture of a duck, for example, it's going to say like it's a duck. But if you say describe a picture like you would do to a blind person, it says there's a duck swimming in a pond. We can see the blue sky and the reflection of the pond and nearby trees and grass. And it's going to go on with more context because it's trying to build a mental picture of the image that's more detailed than what's obviously in the center of it. I've A/B tested this on any other AI capable of analyzing images, and it improves the quality of the results tremendously.
Okay, great. Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, Wes is still having difficulty here. Uzi?
Yeah, I don't really see the excitement around Grok Vision. Maybe it's a precursor to, well, I don't think it's related to Optimus Vision at all. So, what's all the excitement about?
I mean, honestly, without vision capabilities, you can't even really call it a state of the art LLM. It's kind of like table stakes now. You got to be able to show the LLM something and it can understand what it's seeing.
Oh, okay, I think I'm more prejudiced towards Grok being able to speak.
Grok 3 is supposed to be what do you call it? An omni model similar to GPT-4o. So it can take in input and output in images, audio, text, and output it in any format. So you'll be able to have voice to voice and that type of stuff too.
Okay, maybe third time is a charm. Wes, go ahead.
I can finally hear. I joined from my Pixel phone. My Chromebook did not work.
All right. Well, welcome to AI Amateurs. How
Yeah,
are you
it's my
doing?
first time. Thank you.
Yeah. So earlier we talked about, so you just joined us, right, at 9:30?
Yes.
So
Yes.
earlier we talked about Apple Intelligence. Then we talked about Anthropic Cloud computer use. And we also talked
Cool.
about Salesforce AI agents now
Cool.
kind of, running calls. Which one of these
Yeah.
excite you the most?
Agency is super cool. So like we were doing agency at Google Cloud long time ago. Like we had a call center product that we sold to Verizon back in 2017, 2018, based on the transformer model architecture and a large model where it could, take calls in a call center and save Verizon a bunch of money. I don't know if they ever said how much money they saved, but it's a big, big number with lots of zeros. So that's a proven technology, and now that's more widespread. I think that's super cool. But obviously, there's a lot more things that AI can do with agency, and I'm super looking forward to that. I think one of the best things about agency is that it can do things on behalf of you that you would just do yourself. So like you're answering emails, you're answering texts. I know this sounds a little crazy. I don't know how much you've talked about it, but like somebody that not necessarily can impersonate you, but if you've ever heard this term ghostwriter, somebody that can ghostwrite for you and just have things, have things that are pre-written that you can just review and then hit send. I've done that for a lot of VPs and other folks in the past. Pre-written stuff, and they just hit send, or like pre-done presentations and slide decks and all that stuff. That's agency. That's what I see as AI like being super cool about. So there you go. There's a little bit.
Thank you, Wes. And I also want to, in the last 15 minutes, let's talk a little bit of NVIDIA. So earlier this year, you were adamant that NVIDIA will continue to rise, and it has. And their sales continue to grow, margins still high. Do you expect this to continue for the coming years?
Yeah, I don't see any competition. So just for everybody's context, the only potential competitors to this are AMD and Qualcomm. There's no other real potential competitors. There are some companies, Grok with a K, which is what's that guy's name? Chamath. He's an investor in that. And then my predecessor at Cloud TPUs, he's actually a product manager there. It seems like they're making progress, but at the end of the day, they don't really have a product yet. So the only real companies that can make products in the short term, and when I say short term, is like the next 2 to 3 years. The long term is more like 5 to 10 years. The only real players there are AMD and Qualcomm. So I don't know how much you want me to talk about this, but I can talk about this for a while.
So, I mean, we have about 15 minutes, but you're saying even though AMD and Qualcomm are in a position to bring a product to market in the shorter term,
Yeah.
and I think AMD already has one, you don't see Nvidia's dominance weakening at all.
No, I don't know if people know, but at the data center line of business, Nvidia has complete saturation. They're at like upwards of 90%, and potentially even in the high 90s of market share for AI compute at the data center level. So I don't know if people have questions about that, but there's no competition. It doesn't exist. That much of market penetration is nuts. Even in Intel back in the day, in the 90s when I started in tech, they didn't have this much penetration. IBM was still a major player. AMD was a big player back then. The Pentium 1 kind of solidified their dominance, but never even close to 90 in the high 90s. They were at most 60, 65%. So just to give you a perspective, AMD is not a player. They've been trying. They have a tiny little kind of middleware product, but it's not efficient at all. And you're talking 5, 10, 100 times less efficient as CUDA. And, even their third, 3-year-old generation GPUs are way better. So nobody really wants to use that. They have to pay people to use that. Anyway, if you want me to talk more about that, I can.
That's amazing. Omar, anything to add on that front, that AMD is not a threat to Nvidia in the near term?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think, AMD is kind of following their lead. There's a number of technical factors that just make Nvidia's moat pretty easy to defend. You can't really mix in AMD chips. So, yeah, I think Nvidia is going to continue to dominate the market. You look at this large XAI cluster. I mean, they just put up 100,000. They're about to put up another 100,000. Meanwhile, Texas has 100,000 coming online. And when it's time to build the next generation cluster, I'm guessing Jensen's the one who's going to get the call. So AMD will grow too, but there's no question Nvidia's in the dominant position.
Michelle.
It was some sort of a subject change, but Wes probably did not hear the call, and I'm set up to play it back, like the 20-second broker call AI agent we had this morning, if Wes wants to hear it.
Yeah, we have about 10 minutes to go, so I don't want to introduce, we can discuss that further, but okay. Just to kind of wrap this up a little bit, I think Just for Fun also has Nvidia shares. Is that right? Just for Fun?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. So are you guys adding position here to Nvidia or lightening up a little bit? I mean, the stock has run up quite a bit. I don't think Wes is lightening up here. Wes, are you adding more shares?
No, I'm not adding more shares. I'm literally keeping a lot of cash at hand for when we hit the milestone with FSD, where I know that it's conclusive that we're going to get 1,000x improvement from where we are today.
Okay. We can talk more about that tomorrow in Tesla Live. Just for fun, are you adding more shares to Nvidia?
I think over this year, I maybe stupidly sold a little bit off earlier in the year. So I'm probably net down. But recently I sold a little bit and turned the shares into calls just to, I don't know, the recent reports on the demand just still seem off the charts. So it seems like, for the next 1 or 2 quarters, seems like they'll continue to beat.
Okay, interesting. When you refer to recent reports on demand, would you like to share what it is, or?
I think just all the different comments made by the various CEOs. You look at the XAI spend, and then I think it was maybe last weekend or the weekend before, there were reports around the Microsoft spend. I think it was saying that Microsoft is basically spending alone more than the next several players combined on Nvidia GPUs.
Okay, Uzi?
Yeah, I was buying down from, I think it was like 120 to 100, but since then I'm holding. And I do think I agree. I think the term is that Blackwell was pre-sold out, but correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah. Okay. Omar, are you adding more shares or holding on to what you have?
Not adding here. I don't typically like to add when stock is just sort of breaking all-time highs. So I've got a pretty large position. I think it's 20% of my portfolio at this point just because it's grown so much. So I'm just kind of holding it where it is. If I was practicing good portfolio management, I'd probably sell a little, but I also don't want to sell something that's just kind of moving like this. So right now I'm just holding the position where it is, not adding, not lightening up. If there were some type of major correction where it started to get closer to the 100 to $120 range, maybe I would consider adding some more shares.
Okay, great. Michelle, would you like to chime in on that?
I mean, when Tesla was cheap last winter in the like 110 level, I liquidated Nvidia way too soon at like 869 pre-split, and now I'm bitter, so I'm not touching it.
Okay, thank you, Michelle. Michelle, there is a popular request for you to maybe play us a piano song since you're the star of this episode with your contributions and preparations. Michelle DMs our AI amateurs DMs pretty often with some stunning news and tweets, always material. Highly appreciate it. And maybe, Michelle, you can play us a song as closure in about 5 minutes. Let's go to Wes.
So I also reduced my Nvidia percentage when Tesla was below 200. I just wanted to add that.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, Wes. All right. Tomorrow, Tesla Live is going to be pretty busy. So please, everybody, be on time at 1 p.m. Eastern, noon Central, 10 a.m. West Pacific. Michelle, would you be able to play us a song?
I'm pulling up the electrical extension. Give me another 20 seconds.
20 seconds. Okay. Well, if you haven't done that already, please go up to the top of your screens, click through to the YouTube link, and hit that like button. And in the meantime, I'm going to read our audio ads for our sponsors that make this space possible. AI Amateurs is sponsored by Paymore, your trusted destination for buying, selling, trading, and recycling electronics. I'm actually going to visit Paymore tomorrow and get my first experience, and I'll report back how it is. And AI Amateurs proudly sponsored by Joa, your go-to source for premium Tesla accessories. Thank you, Paymore and Joa, for sponsoring Tesla Live and the Tesla community. All right, Michelle. So for Michelle's song, Michelle, would I be able to play that on YouTube, you think?
I'll play something original so you don't get copyright strikes.
Okay.
I'm just gonna improvise something.
All right, thank you. And then after that, we're going to end the space. Thank you very much, everybody, for coming. Michelle, go ahead. Thank you very much, Michelle. That was awesome. Brings me back to our old spaces where we used to have these musical breaks. I really appreciate it. And if you all want to listen to Michelle play his piano in his spaces, you can follow him. He's on the speaker board right now. Thank
Use
you.
the
Yeah,
piano emoji. You can just search the piano emoji on my profile.
there you go. All right, easy to find. That's smart. All right, thank you, Michelle. And thank you, everybody. Thank you to all our speakers. And I will chat with you all tomorrow in Tesla Live, 1 p.m. Eastern, noon Central, 10 a.m. Pacific. Take care. Have a good night.